Not gonna lie guys, I knew I would have to make a video talking about this back when I finished the first series of Devel 16's multiplayer test, but honestly it really feels like it's becoming a problem that as we get closer and closer to a potential release of crossplay between the different platforms where Asphalt 9 is available at, this could be a bigger issue, so today I will explain why the Devel 16 really broke in a way Asphalt 9 Legends multiplayer and why there isn't a clear solution to this problem. So let's get into it. It's been a couple of months since the Devel 16 prototype was introduced into Asphalt 9 Legends, and you all guys know this car story at this point, because this car performance was tested at first by a few official creators from a special beta version a couple of months before the car was introduced into the final game, and at that first test the car was basically the same way it is now but without ramp issues, which I will get into it later. In a nutshell, the beta version of the Devel 16 was so absolutely OP that the creators gave their feedback and Gameloft introduced a few minor changes to balance the car once it was added into the final game. One of these changes was the fact that the car acceleration while it was on air would be slower than usual, making the action of taking ramps and landing after taking them a big issue while using the Devel, since you lose more speed than if you avoid taking ramps at all. And you may be wondering, did that change make the Devel 16 balance enough? Well, not really, because you see, another one of the good things the Devel had at that beta test was the fact that the acceleration was quite solid and quite good. It was good up to a point where it was too OP when compared to all the other top S-Class cars, like it would be the Hennessy Venom F5, the Bolide or Jesco. Well, seems like Gameloft made a small adjustment to the Devel 16 version we got on the final game as well. The problem is that the new acceleration the Devel ended up having was this way, because from 0 to around 400 km per hour, the car basically accelerates just too fast, and then from 400 all the way up to the top speed, the acceleration is let's say average, which at the end explain why the acceleration value we can see at this car stat is 83 points. I think I'm getting way too technical, so I will make it clear. The first Devel 16 version on the beta was basically too broken. The people who tested the car back then reported this performance issue with Gameloft, but Gameloft didn't change this car enough to reduce the gap between the Devel and all the other S-Class cars up to a point where there would be, a balance or something like that. That leads us to the current situation, which I'm about to explain, so you, even if you don't play Asphalt 9 at all, can understand it. The Devel 16 wasn't a car which could be obtained for free, but considering how absolutely broken it is right now, Gameloft decided to do actually a good thing, and it was to release good offers during its Drive Syndicate that allow way more people than usual to unlock this car, since compared to all the other cars previously released through the Drive Syndicates, the Devel was one of the cheapest ones to unlock and even max. I'm talking about $300 to $400 depending on your garage, which, don't get me wrong, is an absolutely ton of money, but some Drive Syndicate cars cost up to $1.5 thousand just to be unlocked, and none of them were even remotely close as good as the Devel 16 actually is. If there is any of you guys who are checking this video right now which never ever tried Asphalt 9 Legends, you all need to understand that the Devel 16 is the best car of the entire game, and not by a small margin, because this car has an insanely sharp drift radius at top speed that outperforms the second fastest car, which is the Hennessy Venom F5, by almost 30 km per hour, and a decent night efficiency for such a massive top speed. This car also is capable of taking corners at over 540 km per hour, something that there isn't any other car in the game capable of doing something like this. Also, just to put the cherry on top, this car acceleration is solid for the rank where it is, and since the acceleration is related to the top speed while drifting a car has, the Devel way of accelerating makes this car to gain top speed while drifting, and this is something that, by the way, can't do any other car in this game. I guess that everyone understands where I'm heading to after all the info about the Devel I have just said. Since this car can't be compared to any other car of this game, that means that if you have the Devel in your garage, you have a guaranteed amount of wins in multiplayer just by using it, because let's get real guys, if you have been watching this video up to this point, I'm sure that you already guys realize how bad these multiplayer runs are, because there are unnecessary drifting, bumps, touching the walls, everything. They are extremely far from being decent, and still all of them ended in first position. Why? Because all what it takes to absolutely dominate this game multiplayer is just one single car, and that car is the Devel 16. What's the problem? Well, aside from the fact that getting this card wasn't exactly free or cheap at all, the main problem is that you are basically done if you are a player without this card and you face someone else with the Devel on multiplayer. And I'm not even talking about free-to-play players, because I'm just talking about those who decided to not to go for this card either because they chose not to or just because they couldn't. I have a gold mag Devel 16 because I'm sure that obtaining this card will be either impossible or way harder than it was during its first Drive Syndicate, and I decided to gold max this card among other reasons because I wanted to show you guys how good this card was from the perspective of a casual player. But man, come on, I mean, the difference is definitely way too big. And now is where we get to the part of the solutions of this problem, because basically, you know, we have a problem, a card so broken that basically ruins the game for everyone that doesn't have it. But could we, let's say, nerf the card stats? Well, definitely Gameloft could. I have seen people spending a ton of cash they would have never spent if the Devel was any worse from a very beginning. So if I were Gameloft, I wouldn't nerf the Devel just for the message that it will send, because this is not Asphalt 8 where there have been massive nerfs where you can get the best card for like 150 bucks. People spend hundreds to get a card in this case, and nerfing it will lead to a waterfall of reports about refunds, and that will be understandable because, as I said, people paid for a card with a specific performance, as it was the case with the Devel 16. So basically, touching the card stats stopped being an option from the very moment the Drive Syndicate began. But then, what's the solution? Well, from this point there are two options: either improve the other cards or change the game physics. So let's explain them. Okay, so the first option is, instead of making the Devel worse, you could improve other cards so they get closer to the Devel in terms of performance, and you know, everyone would be happy since no card would be worse. And believe it or not, that's what Gameloft is trying to do right now with the overclock feature, because basically the overclock gives you the chance to boost some cards' stats. The problem is that the boost right now is not big enough to get close to the Devel 16 in most of these scenarios. Hopefully Gameloft will adjust this so eventually it helps cards like the Hennessy Venom or the Koenigsegg Jesko, among others, to get a bit closer to the Devel 16 insane performance, just so there is a bit more of competition and not just, you know, one card ruling Legends League. Okay, so now let's dive into the second option to solve this problem. The second option to solve this could have been a physics rewards, since most of the Devel's power comes from the insane physics it has with Team, but since this option would have led to major changes in the game, I don't really think that if it ever was on the table, Gameloft dismissed it, since as you can understand, it would have been way too drastic for the overall game. You know, I love this game, and I'm 100% sure of the immense potential it has, but right now I don't think the game is fun or as entertaining as it could be for a majority of the players who reach Legends League and decided not to spend that much in a card like the Devel that just makes their experience within the game just worse, since there is basically not any chance to compete, since even the casuals like me can win. Good players using a Jesko, players that probably deserve the win for their skill and dedication, but that don't have a chance to do the massive performance gap between the different cards. But since I don't really like to make a video explaining a problem without giving at least a suggestion to solve it, I will change the overclock so it gave way more important bonuses, but you know, for way less time. For example, an overclock Jesko with an acceleration of 85 points, let's say, and a nitro of 60 points, but with a bonus that only lasts, for example, let's say 5 days. It's crazy, it's a crazy boost, but it will make the competition at the top S-class more diverse, and you know, of course, with such a massive boost taking place, the overclock pass should be reconsidered, but at least those who don't have the Devel 16 could put up a solid fight against it with a different card, you know. One way or another, I would really like to know your thoughts on this, and how would you guys solve it without nerfing the Devel, so those who have it could keep having what they paid for. I will be reading all the comments and I will pin the best solution, so I really hope you all guys give your best ideas, as well as a massive like and a subscription. I will see you really soon as usual with much more Asphalt content. Goodbye guys.